Welcome to Extra Innings Softball Voices from the Field. I'm Jessie Warren.
And I'm Katie Lively, and we are thrilled to have you with us today.
So grab your gloves,
lace up your cleats,
and settle in as we explore the voices from the field,
where every inning counts and every player has a story. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Voices from the Field. Here we have Jaden Mount again. Jaden's back with us with another episode, and we're going to talk about the transfer portal, but maybe not in the way that you've heard it before. I know that a lot of times we talk about it, how it affects college athletics, how it affects college coaches and college players, but I think I want to tackle it more from the perspective of recruiting, because I don't think that's talked about as much about how it really affects players that are getting recruited, how it affects how coaches can view recruiting, scholarships, all the things that kind of come with it. So kind of to start us off, Jaden, I want to give you the first question. So the first question is pretty generic. It's probably pretty broad, so it's probably going to break off into a lot of different conversations. But how do you think the transfer portal recently has affected recruiting? And when I say recently, of just being able to transfer a lot easier, I know before it used to be you had to sit out a year. Is that right? Yeah, so now you can kind of transfer without having to sit out, and you can transfer in conference. So how do you think it's affected recruiting? Do you think it has? And just kind of give me a basis on that, since you have a lot of experience in college coaching.
Yeah, I think it has, especially now that the transfer portal has gotten so much easier. And like you said, you don't have to sit out a year, especially like in conference. You see it more now than ever because people are transferring in conference and then they're playing against their teammates. The SEC has a lot of that going on right now. But I think it does have an effect on recruiting high school, because if there's a freshman or a junior in high school that's committed to a power four, and 2 years later she thinks she's going to be the starting shortstop, and then they get a junior transfer from another power four, it could have an impact on her and she may not be able to play. So I think really understanding how that is working, and you honestly have to earn your spot. Like, yes, you can transfer in, but you still have to earn your spot. But I think it kind of puts a perspective on the kids that they have to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Is their coach using the transfer portal a lot? If they want to go or that they have an offer from, are they not using the transfer portal? And it kind of like deepens the recruiting process. Because like, I'll just use an example of Oklahoma. If you're trying to go to Oklahoma, I mean, there's a ton of transfers that come into Oklahoma. Where I played at ULM, Molly didn't even know her password to the transfer portal. So I think you have to do your research on how many people are coming in from the transfer portal. Are they using the transfer portal? Are they getting JUCOs? That's another thing, because those kids have 2 more years of experience in college. But I think just understanding that you've got to dig in and do your research.
Yeah, I think research is a huge thing because, like you said, there are programs. There's a program that I know of that they really don't have a lot of signees coming in. They really do. They have like 2 or 3 signees every year, and the rest they get in the summertime after the season ends. So I think you're right. The researching part is so important, more than ever before.
Yeah.
Just kind of seeing what, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's no, if you're a coach that gets more transfer portal kids, like, it's not that you're any worse or any better, but I think it is just important to know that going in, because like you said, if you're going in and you think you're going to be the number one shortstop coming in your freshman year because the senior graduates and all that, and then a girl comes in that's a grad transfer, because I mean, you get into that too, of they're more experienced for the most part, even if they don't play, even if it's somebody that comes in and really didn't play their years at the other school, they still have experience with academics, with balancing school and doing the workouts and going to practice. Like, they have that maturity that at the end of the day, college freshmen don't, just because they don't have the experience to. So how do you think it's affected coaches and recruiting? Do you think it's put a strain on that? Because I just can't imagine being a college coach, even if you're not a huge fan of the portal, even if you don't usually go very often, but you have you're in a mid-major and you have a power four shortstop that comes in and says, "Hey, I really want to transfer to your program," a lot of coaches are going to say yes, because why would you not? They're, if they're really good. So how do you think coaches, how do they prepare for that? Can they prepare for that?
Yeah, I do think it puts a big strain on coaches, especially if people aren't using the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Then they see that these programs within their conference are utilizing the transfer portal for good reason. And then these kids are coming into whatever conference and they're dominating, you know?
Yeah.
Do you get high school girls coming in their freshman year? Do you sign 9, or do you
Yeah.
go in and get 4 or 5 and then you get a couple transfers? I think it's a balance, and I think it has to do with your coaching style. I think research also needs to be done on how many players are transferring out of that school,
Right.
as well, because that would tell me a lot. Obviously, we
Yeah.
didn't grow up in the transfer portal realm, but I think you have to do your research on that and just understanding that it can hurt you, it can help you.
Yeah.
I did some research, and the NCAA has said 31,000 kids enter the transfer portal, and 45% of them have found a home. 55% haven't found a home.
Mhm.
So I think it's like, yes, if you've made a name for yourself and you've hit some big statistics. I don't want to put a number on anything. If you have some good statistics, it's a little bit easier to find a home, but and then in conference is even tougher because I mean you've played against these people, and like, and then is that relationship when you're going into this new team, like, is there some chippy, like, is there like
Yeah.
some of a chippy competition going into that? But I think that's some research that you have to do, and understanding from a high school perspective, like, am I gonna, like, if I get hurt and I never get to play softball again,
Right.
is this where I want to be? I
Yeah.
think to put it into that, and so that way, even if you do get hurt, like, you're staying at that school and you just fall in love with the school.
Yeah. Yeah, and off that too, I I guess it's a question more than it is me giving a statement, but do you think that players may see the portal as kind of like a crutch where it's like, okay, I want to go here, but I guess if it doesn't work out, I can always transfer. Do you think that's a mindset? I don't know that. I don't, I'm at, that's not a rhetorical question. I genuinely don't know. I don't know what it's like going and doing recruitment now as a player now with the transfer portal. Do you think that's affecting players' decisions because they know that it's there? Not that I think it's bad that it's there, because there are some situations where you can't control and you don't foresee
Mhm.
that you need to get out. But do you think that's had any kind of effect on players kind of knowing they can always transfer?
Yes, I think people do use that as a crutch. And say you wanted to go to a Power Four and they didn't want you at the time, and then you go to a decent mid major and boost your stats up, and then I'm looking for the next big thing, which is a mindset that I never really had
Yeah.
when I played in college. And nowadays, like, I think it does put strain on coaches, and especially with NIL too.
Yeah.
But it's just like, where am I going to make the most money now, instead of, man, I just love the school, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's what puts a burden on these athletes now, is how much money I can make. And I do think when they, like, we didn't make a dime. Like, I did not make
Right.
a dime when I played softball. You probably didn't either, because I mean, it was like, well,
No.
you might have a little bit. No, well, I like, because the NIL happened right after I graduated,
Yeah, no. I could have maybe tried something, but no, I
but
did
it
not.
wasn't like
No.
1.2.
No.
So like that what really wasn't like a mindset that I have now. And now
Yeah.
it's, now when you hop in the portal and they're like, hey, I can write you a $500,000 check and we can get you a car, we can get you a house. And
Yeah.
so I think that is putting more expectations. Like, if you're not producing, then
Right.
you might get that taken away. So
Right.
I think it's a balance of, do I want to go to school here? How much money am I going to make? Do I love this school? Should I enter the portal? Is this where I want to be? So there's so many questions, and I think some people make split decisions and they just go to where they're going to make the most money, and then they end up hating it, and then they hop in the portal and go
Right.
somewhere else. So I think it's
Yeah.
a big carousel, that it's just today's world now that we live in.
It is. Yeah, and like I said before, the portal can be great. I went through a coaching change while I was still in college, and I think that if there is a coaching change, I think you should be allowed to leave if you want, because I mean, at the end of the day, it can be a culture change. It can be, a lot different than what you are used to. So I do think there are situations where the portal is great. And I think
Totally agree. Mhm.
it gives power to the athletes that they're not stuck somewhere for 4 years if something were to happen that wasn't expected.
Yep.
But I think that it's hard. I know obviously with COVID, it was really hard for, I don't remember what class it was. It might have been the class of 2021 maybe, or 2022, that it really affected because the extra
Yeah.
year, the transfer, all that stuff. But it's hard because you can't blame a coach for wanting to get a kid with experience,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
and I completely agree,
And you're
especially when you're super young, and you don't have any leadership, like your leadership just graduated.
right.
But I totally get it, and especially in those key positions, like a pitcher. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have a senior pitcher that leaves and nobody else has over 35 innings, like
Right.
that's tough to find an ace the next year. So
Yeah. Right.
that is a good reason for the portal. And especially if someone doesn't like if something happens, like you said earlier, that you can't control, like
Yeah.
that's something completely different too.
Right.
So I think that's where the portal is a great thing. And
Yeah.
some people just want to be closer to home, like,
Yeah. Right.
and that is totally fine, and I completely get that. And
Yeah.
I
But
just think,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, even like the shortstop and center fielder, like when you lose that, like it's tough.
It's hard. Yeah. And so, yeah, but then again, I go back to, how many players commit to a school that maybe it is further from home, or whether maybe it's something that they don't think they'll like, but they're, let me try it and then I can always transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I think obviously it's not my life, not my circus, not my monkey. So not my monkeys, not my circus. I don't know which way it goes, but I get it. Like, it's not my life. So it's like, it doesn't affect me. But when it comes to like being a coach or trying to navigate somebody through the recruiting process, it's like, I don't know if I would recommend someone to think of the portal as a fallback. I don't think that's something that you should. I don't think the portal should even be in your mind until something happens. I don't think it
Yes.
should be I'm going to commit here, and then I guess if I don't play, or if I don't,
Or
I
if
don't
I'm really,
like
really
it,
good, I can go to the next
or if
big.
I'm really, really good. Exactly. You see that a lot. I mean, you see a lot of people, and I'm obviously a huge mid-major fan. I went to a mid-major. My sister's at a mid-major. I think that there are some really awesome programs at that level, and it really sucks to see their ace pitcher. It sucks to see your starting shortstop or whoever it is end up leaving and going power four because they're really good. So it's a hard balance that I think there's no solution to, finding that balance. I think it's really just soul searching and, understanding that, when you commit to go play somewhere, it should be for 4 years. But kind of going off that into travel ball. So I see a lot of discussion online, and just hear about it with coaches a lot, is so many people just leave,
Yeah.
right? It's a rotating thing where it's like, my kid doesn't play, they're going to go to this team, or I didn't like what that coach did, so I'm going to go to this team. And it's like a revolving door. I see Twitter posts all the time of girls going to different teams. And again, in some extent, it might be a good thing, like
Exactly.
money, where the team's located, how much they're traveling. If the coach left and there's a new coach, there are situations again where it's best for your child, it's best for the player to leave. But do you think that the portal has kind of opened up a mindset of, oh, I'm not getting exactly what I want, so I'm just going to leave and go somewhere else?
Yes, I completely do think that it has opened up that door, and it's just not teaching these kids good lessons. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I'm not playing here. I can just hop in the portal. And this is a football example, so it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
football, but there was a kid that he's at his fifth school, 1 a year. Yeah. So that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And yes, it's good in some sense, like we've been talking about, but
Mhm.
that is excessive. And I just think it's like it's okay to like it's telling them that it's okay not to be loyal
Yes.
to your school. Like when you commit somewhere, it's like you said, should be for 4 years. Like that's how it used to be. I mean,
Yeah.
you just didn't see a lot of transfer.
Mm-mm.
And now it's just like, well, I got to go find something better. Like the
Yeah.
grass is always greener. No, it's
Yep.
not. I promise you,
No.
it's not. And in some sense, yes, it is. But I just think that it's just telling them, well, it's okay. Like, I mean, when they get into the real world, you can't just hop jobs like that.
No.
You're
No.
not gonna, I mean,
Uh-uh.
you got to put in your 2 weeks. you've got to interview for a new job. Like if you don't have a job, you're not going to make money. So
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to think about future. Yes, it's good to live in the present, be where your feet are, but in that sense, like you got to think about 4 years.
Yeah.
You
Right.
just can't think about, oh well, I'm gonna be here for 1 year and then I'm gonna go there for another year. Like, and I get it. If your coach leaves, that is complete. And if you go with them, great. Like I
Yeah.
think
Right.
loyalty, right? But I just think team hopping, and coach hopping, that's just I don't know. It's for the birds.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. And I think it also adds just a whole nother level of, I don't want to say stress. Well, I don't know if it's stress. I don't know if it's just a headache, if it's frustration, but some other layer for a coach to have to deal with. Like, I, again, have heard travel ball coaches say, well, if I make this one parent mad, they'll leave. Or, there's no, it's like you're not only trying to coach players and you're not only trying to make them better and get them recruited and learn life lessons and all that stuff, you're also just trying to keep them happy
Yeah.
to stay on your team. And regardless of what you say, I know there are people that are like, who cares if they're happy? If they want to leave, they can leave. And I get that to an extent, but I mean, you can't lose your whole team. Like, I hate to say it, but if you have a really good pitcher that's always shutting people out, you want to keep them happy because you want them to stay. And I get it. Again, there's a line, but I think it just adds a whole nother thing for coaches to have to worry about is
No, it
if I
definitely.
make this one player mad because I bench her one game, mom and dad are going to leave after the weekend's over and I'll have to find me another shortstop. I'll have to find me another first baseman.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine the stress that it puts on the coaches.
Yeah. And then going off of like college coaching, like
Yeah.
if you're seeing these kids team hop 5, 6, 7 different times
Mhm.
in their career,
Yeah.
how loyal are they going to be to you? Like when you're recruiting
Right.
them. So, and as much as I say it from like a college coach perspective, we recruit parents too. We
Yeah.
recruit your parents.
Mhm.
We're not just like recruiting you, we're recruiting your family. Mom or dad is encouraging that. Like we're team hopping every 2 seconds because we're not happy. Like I'm probably gonna mark you off.
Right.
When I see you at a tournament, I don't care how good you are. Like you've got to recruit good people. When you
Mhm.
recruit good people, that's when you're gonna win. Because you can teach the sport of softball, but you just can't teach good people. So
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah. I just wanted to take a second to shout out our commit crew. Our commit crew is comprised of the class of 2026 grads who are all committed to play Division 1 softball. Our commit crew members give offensive and defensive tips, they share their daily routines, and even give some advice to younger players. Go to our website now and go to the extra tab on our website to find our commit crew. So let's go into a little bit of college for the sake of recruitment to kind of give people a better understanding. Because I know that a lot of stuff in the NCAA is changing. It's always changing. There's always something that's going on. But I know you're well versed in a lot of that stuff. So the NCAA just came out with a 25-man cap rule with I think all sports has a cap now, but softball is 25.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about it a little bit with Carrie in a previous episode, but give me just a short little description of what that means and what that can potentially mean for players that are going through the recruiting process. Like, what do they need to know about that? Because I know the NCAA can be so confusing. It's really hard to keep up with all the rules. And unless you have someone that's really well versed in it in your corner, it's hard to understand what that means. So, could you talk on that of like what it is going to, not what it is going to do to the sport, but how it's going to affect recruiting?
Yeah. I think for like the recruiting part of it, like we had 29 players on my team, my sophomore
Okay.
year. Like
Okay.
you can't do that
Because there
anymore.
wasn't a cap
Yeah.
at all, right?
Yep, there wasn't a cap. So we had 29. Now with the 25-man cap, and the past two, when I was at South and I was at ULM, we had about 25 or less. So, that can change, but these bigger schools, these power fours, I mean, they probably have almost 30 players
Yeah.
on their team. Like you almost have like 3 teams that you can put out there. So that means spots are getting taken. And
Mhm.
then that means more girls are going to be left without homes, especially Division One. So if every team had 30 players on their team, I mean that's five less times however many 200 or 302 Division One college programs, right? So
Yeah.
however much that math is. That's a lot of players that are going to be left with spots. But so now, like with the cap, you can give money to everyone on your team, but walk-ons may not be as prevalent, which is tough because a lot of people did use walk-ons as practice players, and now like that may be harder, but there's still more opportunity at the lower levels at Division 2, Division 3, JUCO, because a lot of teams that I've seen like have a bunch of JUCO players.
Yeah.
Because I mean, some of these JUCO players that are all Americans, they may have started late, they may have not been recruited as heavy, and now they're going to these Power 4 schools and they're making an impact right then and there. So
Yeah.
I think there's a way that there's a spot for everyone, but you've got to find the right fit.
Mhm.
And I think you've got to do your research, and once you find that fit, like be good, like you'll be good. So
Yeah. And I think too, we've talked about it, the 45% of players are finding college homes. I think it's underestimated how hard it is to find a home in the portal. Like, I think, yes, it's an option, and you can see it as an option, but it's really hard, especially now with this cap.
yeah,
These teams that physically cannot
yeah,
have another player on their team, they can't just pick up, a player in the portal because, oh, well, she can run bases for us. She'll be our 26th, 27th kid on the team. Like, it's a lot more cutthroat. So I think it's important to remember too how hard the portal is,
hmm
because from my experience, like with people I know and even just following it now, you almost have to have a college you've been inadvertently talking to
yeah,
before you get into the portal to
exactly.
find a home.
Find a
Like,
home.
I'm not saying it never happens. I'm not saying that at all. You can totally get in the portal and find a home without having talked to anybody before that. But I think a lot of times there's some kind of communication, whether it's obviously it's not with you, but it's maybe a coach that you had in travel ball talking to the college
Yep,
coach or whatever it is
yep,
that's indirectly talking to you. But I think that's something people don't talk about either, is it's really hard. Like, once you get in the portal, it's
yeah.
hard.
Well, I mean, even like when you're in high school, it's hard to get recruited. And
Exactly.
you go to wherever you commit to, and then you hop
Mhm.
in the portal. Like you've got to do that process all over again.
All
And
over again.
people don't get that. Yes, there's more film and things like that, but now with this cap, it's going to be even harder.
Yeah.
And especially if a team is very young and they don't have a lot of kids leaving, if they don't
Mhm.
enter the portal. I mean, so it's more research on the back end now.
Yeah. No, it is so much more research. And that's why I'm so glad you hit on that with just researching schools and finding out, how many transfers do they have every year? How many people do they pick up in the portal after every summer? Because it's hard to compete as a college freshman to compete with a grad transfer. Like,
Exactly.
that's so hard. Like, that's you're 18 competing with a 22, maybe a 23-year-old, depending on their birthday. So
I was 23 playing.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to compete with that. We are taking a short break to let you guys know about our recruiting section of our website. So if you go to our website, extrainningssoftball.com, you will find our recruiting tab at the top. In that section, we have recruiting tips from college coaches, advice from players who are already committed, and even some tips from former Division I college softball coach and a valued member of our team, Jaden Mount. So head on over to our website now to check out all we have to offer for recruiting.
Yeah.
So I think the common consensus is really just to find where you fit in the best. I think it's, again, it's cliche and it's something that you hear all the time, but you need to do what's best for you and where you fit best, not necessarily it's Power 4, it's Division 1, it's Division 2, Division 3, JUCO. I think the portal has shown us now more than ever that the level doesn't matter. You see a lot of players that may have signed Power 4 and then they ended up playing in a mid-major and were so successful and so much happier. You have people that signed in one conference and then transferred to another conference and again are so much happier and thriving. So I think that at the end of the day, it's just finding where you fit best and not looking at the level, because now with so much moving parts,
Mhm.
it's almost like don't even worry about it, because you just need to be like, to me, it really just matters if you're happy and that's where you feel like you're growing and you're learning to be a better person every day. So yeah, I think that's all we got for the transfer portal. You got anything else, Jaden?
I think just like from when I was recruiting, and when we had people that were in the transfer portal that came on visits, like coaches talk, coaches know each other.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like you've got to clean up your social media. You don't need to be a bad person. So I think just understanding that, yeah, if you want to transfer in conference, like these coaches talk. So
Mhm.
I think just understanding that point of that part of it, because every like the softball world is small, and
Yeah.
you just have to understand that people talk.
Yeah, well, kind of on top of that too, I know it happens a lot, and again, I know no one plans on transferring. They never plan on. You don't commit and be like, I know I'm going to transfer after my first year. But I have heard a lot of stories of players that, the big thing and the most respectful thing to do when you're getting offers and you end up committing is calling the coaches that gave you offers and telling them, hey, I'm going to commit to this school. Thank you for the opportunity. All that stuff that you have to do to kind of respect the coaches that gave you an opportunity, even if it's not the place you chose. But I know that I've heard of stories of players that may not have been that respectful, didn't call coaches when they committed, didn't give them the time of day, kind of just didn't respect them at the end of the day. And they go to a school and they transfer and they want to call up that coach again, and the coach remembers. And I think just kind of goes back to, and that's like in every aspect of life, is you never know
Yep, don't
down
burn
the road what connections you need to make, and how you treat coaches within the recruiting process. It gets around. Even just with the coaches, always, you have a lot of coaches going the coaching, carousel. They're always going around too. So, if you didn't respect a coach that was recruiting you and then they end up somehow going to your school, now you might have a problem, right? So I think it does also show, like you said, the softball world's small and you never know who you'll run into down the road. So make sure that you're always respecting your coaches, and regardless of what level they're at or what school they're at, you need to respect them, and,
like, I mean, even if you want to be a coach one day, and
don't burn bridges.
yep, don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
Promise you that. That is one of the biggest things you can learn from us. Do not burn bridges.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thanks, Jaden, for hopping on, and we will see y'all next time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our latest episode. I wanted to make sure you guys knew about our sports performance section on our website. If you go to our website, extrainningssoftball.com, and click on the Extra tab, you'll be able to find our sports performance section. In that section, we have all you need for rest and recovery. Jacob Billingsley, owner of Base Sports Performance, shares his best advice and tips from nutrition, arm care, rest, and so much more. So head on over to our website now to check it out.